Thanks, David. So our next speaker is going to be Matt Reichel. Before he comes up to speak, I do just want to mention that if anybody has any petition signatures that they have not yet turned in, please do turn them into Justin right over here. Justin, raise your hand. I think everybody knows who you are. We're going to try to start counting them now, so by the time we go to turn them in at 4, we know how many we have. And Matt Reichel, come on up. Also running for Congress for the Green Party in the 5th District.
Is that Mohawk got the thing? Put it on the back.
All right, hello, can you hear me? Okay, thank you for inviting me. Thank you, everybody, for coming out here and supporting this most important cause of monetary reform here in the United States. It's very inspiring for me to see people from across the political spectrum, me on the left as a Green Party activist, a lot of Republicans, Libertarians, Constitutionalists here, all coming together to address the root cause of this nation's economic malaise, the inflationary, boom-bust driven monetary system managed by the authoritarian, non-transparent Federal Reserve and the greedy bankers who profit off of this nation's ruin. I'm going to relate a personal story in order to help us better understand the mindsets of those economists who we oppose. While I was conducting my graduate studies in Paris, I had the misfortune of taking an international economics class with a Swiss economist who at the time, this was in 2005, told us you can't refer to the housing boom as a bubble until the bubble burst. That's right, according to mainstream economists on both sides of the pond, we can't have the foresight to tackle impending collapse before the house of cards comes down. Now, despite the fuzzy rhetoric of last November's hope and change, what we have gotten in terms of monetary policy is a continuation of the Clinton-Bush years. A Treasury Secretary, William Geithner, directly over from the Federal Reserve, and a Fed czar, Bernanke, who has continued the Greenspan bubblenomics lock, step, and barrel. Instead of growing our economy through the development of hard industry, innovative technologies, and creative endeavor, we have continued a policy of creating artificial booms with lavish liquidity handouts to banks and other financial institutions whose seemingly unlimited greed and insidious contempt for the American worker has propelled us onto uncharted terrain. $700 billion in TARP funds stolen from the American taxpayer. Another $1 trillion for Geithner's public-private investment plan, wherein taxpayers foot the bill for hedge funds to purchase toxic assets. And of course a whopping $12.8 trillion in Fed loans and guarantees that Ben Bernanke has used to artificially stabilize the housing market. Our balance of payments and budget deficits continue to be unmanageable, while our indebtedness to other countries, primarily China, a communist dictatorship, has soared to over $10 trillion. The regime of hope has done nothing to restore fiscal discipline or to introduce scrutiny over monetary policy. Instead, we have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars to bail out the banks and to continue waging an illegal and immoral war in Iraq and AfPak.
It's the Obama deception!
Meanwhile, rather than selling off mortgage-based securities at auction, allowing insolvent banks to go into receivership, and forcing greedy speculators to pay the consequences of their actions, we've propped up the housing market by allowing the Federal Reserve to essentially buy out the entire market. Colossal sums of money getting tossed around with no public scrutiny or congressional oversight. It's bad enough that our Congress is primarily composed of shills for Wall Street investors that willingly handed out $700 billion in TARP funds. But at least we had a fighting chance of lobbying Congress to vote against the bailout. And some actually did. However, when it comes to the greater than $10 trillion Federal Reserve bailout, and the generations of indebtedness this will cause, the incredible downward pressure on our currency this will endure, and the sharp collision course this will set us upon, we the people have no power to intervene and tell the masters of capital that we've had enough. H.R. 1207 will be the first step. by opening a window to the Federal Reserve and lifting restrictions on the Government Accountability Office ability to audit this traditionally secretive organ of private bankers. Let us be clear, this is a first, very necessary step towards more comprehensive monetary reform, towards one day reversing what has been nearly a century of reckless monetary policy, downward pressures on the dollar, and near certainty that the federal government has acted in the interest of Wall Street and not the taxpayer. I thank you for taking up this extraordinarily important task, for your impassioned activism, and look forward to continuing to work with you towards lifting the veil of secrecy off of the Federal Reserve. Thank you.
And where are you running? Say where you're running. So